Three Wonder Kids, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, all created exactly equally, same age, same attributes, same potential ability, very different career trajectories. One of them is at Manchester City in the Premier League, one of the best youth development setups in the entire game. The other two are at Hemel Hempstead in the National League North, and they're going to be trapped there for a period of time. Louis is going to be stuck there for the next 5 years until he turns 20, at which point he's going to go and join Dewey at Manchester City. Huey has got to wait 10 years. He will be nearly 26 before he also makes the move to Manchester City. Two things we're testing for here. One, which one of those is going to end up having the best career? Is it the guy who's at Manchester City all the way through, but who probably will get less time initially? Or is it one of the guys who is going to get loads of game time, but not going to be able to make that move to a big club for 5 or even 10 years? And then the other thing we're looking at is one or two really good Wonder Kids enough to take a team from the National League South up the leagues. I don't do this kind of thing very often, so I have no idea what's going to happen. Let me know in the comments what you think might happen. Run the experiment. I need a white coat for these kind of videos, I think, don't I? Can you get them on Amazon? And here we go then, folks. You join me on the 3rd of July 2023. The save has just begun. And here are Huey, Dewey, and Louie. That's Huey. Huey is the one who is starting at Hemel Hempstead and is going to be stuck there for the next 10 years. You can see all of his attributes and whatnot there. We will be tracking them as the save goes through. As you can see, I've even bought the editor so that we can actually track their ability. So they are all starting with 125 current ability, 200 potential ability. The game has adjusted some of their reputations and things, presumably according to where they've started. But that's Huey. We've then got Dewey. Dewey is the guy who starts at Manchester City. And again, he has got exactly the same setup, 125 ability, 200 potential. I've no idea why they've got different heights. I think every other attribute is exactly the same, but the heights vary across the three of them, because then Louis is a little bit taller. He's going to be at Hemel Hempstead for the next 5 years. And again, just to check that they're all starting equal, 125 and 200. They all play in exactly the same positions. They're basically all clones of Lamine Yamal, so we know they're going to end up really good theoretically. But how much is nature? How much is nurture? Let's see how they get on in their first season, shall we? And there we go. 1 season in. Let's have a look at our 3 boys. So starting with Dewey, who is at Manchester City and played 2 games for them, 2 substitute appearances, 1 in the FA Cup as well. Weirdly, has also made his full England debut, coming off the bench for England, despite never starting a game for Manchester City. That seems like absolute insanity. He did play 60 times for the Manchester City youth setups and scored 35 goals last season, including 5 out of 5 on his penalty taking as well, and was quite good for them. But only the 2 substitute appearances for the first team, but of course the England debut, which I suggest the other 2 probably don't have. Louis, one of the 2 who, of course, for the next 5 years is going to be probably part of an excellent strike partnership at Hemel Hempstead. So Louis got 11 goals, 6 assists from 42 appearances, and Huey got 15 goals, 9 assists from 46 appearances. Hemel Hempstead themselves, how did they finish last season? They only finished 17th place. So despite having 2 Wonder Kids who we know, because they've been set up identically, we know these 2 Wonder Kids are good enough to play for England because their brother does. But it wasn't enough to even get Hemel Hempstead into the top half of the table. They've got 4 more years with both of them at the club. Just how dominant can those boys end up being? So we've moved 2 more years forward. The boys are now all 18 years old, and you can see there's some pretty significant difference in transfer value between the one at Manchester City and the 2 presumably still playing in non-league. In fact, they've made it up to the National League, as we can see there. So if we start with Dewey at Manchester City, he hasn't broken into the first team. In fact, he's done a season out on loan at Bristol City. So first season, he played his 2 substitute appearances, made his England debut, but then didn't play at all for anyone the following year. Did score 47 goals in an incredible 88 games, presumably playing for both Manchester City youth teams, the under-18s and the under-23s. Then went out on loan to Bristol City, 15 goals in 37 appearances in the Championship, and now has a second game for England. He is now showing a current ability of 155. Let's see how that compares to the other two who've had their 3 years. So Louis is the one who's only got 2 more years left at Hemel Hempstead. He has been scoring plenty of goals, 129 career appearances, 45 goals, including the promotion season, getting 24 goals. He has now moved up to... He hasn't moved at all. His current ability hasn't changed in 3 years. Still stuck at the 125 that he started with, which kind of goes against what everyone has been telling me for years, that the key to developing young players is to play them. Well, what we've seen, I mean, we'll check with Huey as well, but what I'm seeing there 3 years in is it's actually much more important to be at a club with proper youth development facilities, because Louis played over 100 games and is nowhere near as good as the guy who hasn't. Huey, on the other hand, hasn't scored quite so many goals early on, but did finish top scorer for Hemel Hempstead last season. So he's the one who's currently in form. He's still got another 7 years at this level. So if they're not going to develop while they're at Hemel Hempstead, that does suggest poor old Huey, despite all his potential, might never make it and might just be a superstar for Hemel Hempstead, who... in the previous season, if we have a look to see how they've just got on, finished 18th in the National League. So they have been promoted to the National League from the National League North. Inexplicably, looks like they don't start Huey and Louis up front together, which seems bonkers. They've also learnt to play central midfield. Can the other one do that if we just go back into our short list? No. So that's interesting. Both Huey and Louis have learnt to play centre mid. Dewey hasn't felt the need to. He's just going to faff around playing as part of a front three, still never starting a game for his actual club, Manchester City, but with a couple of England caps under his belt. Let's get to the 5-year mark, at which point Louis goes to join Dewey at Manchester City and presumably has to play catch-up. Is he still going to be young enough to catch up with Dewey? So we have now hit the 5-year mark. And again, you can see the difference in the values depending on where these players are. Dewey, who's had 5 years at Manchester City, is now just not for sale. Louis, who's just joined them from Hemel Hempstead, a value of between 33 and 100 million. Huey, who's got 5 more years at Hemel Hempstead, 35k to 100,000. Bless his cotton socks. Let's see what Dewey's up to. Has he broken into the Manchester City team? He has. After coming back from that loan at Bristol City, he's come back to Manchester City. He started 7 games when he was 19, and last season starting 14 games. So he's still not a regular starter, but is getting regular appearances. He's starting to get good as well. 36 appearances, 9 goals, 5 assists, 1 man of the match, and a 7.13 average rating. He's also now played 18 times for England. He's probably started as many games in his career for England as he has for Manchester City, which is an absolutely insane statistic. But let's have a look at how his ability is developing. He's already, at age 20, up to 182 current ability. He is earning £450,000 a week as well. He's still not a regular starter at City, which is bonkers when you think about it. It doesn't necessarily bode well for Louis, who's just joined him there. Remember, started out absolutely identical. He's now made it to 5'11" compared to the 5'8" of Dewey. So he's basically a bigger version of the guy that is already there and is doing brilliantly. He's been excellent for Hemel Hempstead for his full 5 years there. Played over 200 league games, over 100 goal contributions, man of the matches galore. Remember, he's having to share all this with his brother, averaging a 7.15 in his most recent season for Hemel Hempstead, which bizarrely still hasn't led them to promotions. I think they got so close, but now they've lost one of them. So I guess this is probably the end of the road for Hemel Hempstead, feeding off of these young wonder-kids. It turns out you need more than 2 outstanding players to drag yourselves into the Football League from the National League South. But Louis, let's see how, or if he's developed at all during his 5 years at Hemel Hempstead. He hasn't. 5 years playing for Hemel Hempstead in non-league, over 200 games played. His current ability has not changed at all. If we compare him to Dewey at Manchester City, bearing in mind 5 years ago these two were identical, Well, they're not so identical anymore, are they? Now Louis is in the Man City system. How far is he going to be able to get to catch up with Dewey? He's presumably at age 20 not going to catch him now. But will he get close? Will he become an England international? Will he become a Premier League star? And what does it mean for poor old Hughie, who has got 5 more years stuck at Hemel Hempstead? He's actually probably been the better of the two so far. A little bit shorter, but scored slightly more goals, a 7.07 average rating over those 5 years. He's on his own now, trying to lead Hemel Hempstead into the Football League. It's going to be a tall order. Bless him, he's still only earning £5 a week as well on his youth contract because I'm a monster, apparently. They're playing him out wide, which is interesting. But, I mean, I assume he's also not developed at all. Yeah, still just 125 current ability. What is the Hemel Hempstead setup? I think they're semi-pro. Yeah, they're semi-pro. And then facilities-wise, they don't really have any. So that's why he's not developing. But is Louis going to catch up with Dewey now? Let's have a look. We've just gone 2 years because I wanted to see the immediate impact on Louis moving into Manchester City. So you can see that they are both there. Very different scenario, though. Dewey is wanted by Barcelona and Real Madrid and is away on international duty with England. Louis, on the other hand, is on the loan list at Manchester City because they want to help with his player development. That is troublesome for him. So Dewey now has the number 7 shirt at City, 36 England caps and 20 goals. He's going to be England's best player, you would think. Still not scoring as many goals as I thought he would. I thought this guy was going to turn into a superstar striker. They're very much using him as a wide player, which I guess is fair enough, but he's now doing a 7.41 average rating, and he is 199 current ability. He is this close at 22 years old to being a perfect footballer. So Man City can develop a youngster quite well, it seems. Louis, on the other hand, who, remember, 5 years at Hemel Hempstead, has now had 2 years at City. However, they only used him off the bench 7 times in his first year. In this most recent season, he's been farmed out on loan to Birmingham in League One. So not quite the same youth development for him. Has he moved on during these 2 years? Okay, so now he's at City. He has moved up from 125 to 141. He is slowly but surely catching up with his brother. Interestingly, his current ability is now higher than Dewey's was when he made his England debut at 15, but clearly a 22-year-old doing it, less interesting. And then poor old Hughie, still earning £5 a week, still brilliant for Hemel Hempstead, presumably their greatest player of all time. Yeah, there he is. Look, Hughie is a Hemel Hempstead legend on £5 a week. What more could you want out of your career? He's loved and adored by more people, and he's actually improving. Okay, that's a thing. So he's gone from 125 to 131 current ability in 7 years and over 300 league games, but he is slowly starting to improve. 3 years' time, he gets to join his brothers at Manchester City. Is he ever going to play for England? Well, 10 years in, I thought I was going to be able to show you all 3 of them at Manchester City. Alas, I am not. Hughie has now headed there to join up with Dewey after his 10 years at Hemel Hempstead, but it looks like Louis, things didn't really work out for him at Man City, and he has now gone to AC Milan. Although, to be fair, now wanted by Arsenal, he's potentially getting that career back on track after stalling at City. That interest in Dewey from Barcelona and Real Madrid never materialised, it seems. And he has now had 10 years at Manchester City. Look at that value. Goodness me. 68 England caps, 43 goals, and is just continuing to be an absolutely incredible player. Has now played 270 career games. So getting to the same kind of levels as the 2 others we're getting to in non-league, but obviously he's done all of his at a much, much higher level. Presumably he is now a perfect footballer now. Yes, 200 out of 200 on his current ability. You don't get any better than Dewey, and he's weirdly moved from the number 7 to the number 6, despite still not learning to play central midfield after all these years. Louis left Manchester City having never really got an opportunity. What a contrast. Only 2 goals in his Manchester City career. Only started 1 game in the 3 years that he was there. Spent that time out on loan at Birmingham as well, before going on loan to AC Milan and then ultimately joining them for £37.5 million last summer. And to be honest, not exactly tearing up Serie A. 14 goal contributions, a 6.97 average rating. He is now up to 164 current ability. He has made his England debut. He's got 4 England caps. 3 of them were off the bench this season. The other one was off the bench the season before. So he's not yet started a game for England, but he is now getting called up into that England squad. He's still got some catching up to do, but still only 25. There is the potential for a career there still. And then we've got Huey, who has seemingly learned to play wing-back and defensive midfielder. What on earth have Hemel Hempstead been doing with this poor boy? Other than letting him score loads and loads of goals. 440 career appearances now. 153 goals. A high rating of 7.06. Weirdly, his rating of 7.06 in the National League, not as high as Dewey's career average, playing in the Premier League and the Champions League. So shows that it's quite important to get that development in. He was 131 last time we looked at him. He is now up to 132. At 25, he has now joined the Man City machine. It might be too late for poor old Huey. So 3 more years have passed. The boys are now theoretically in their prime, 28 years old. And poor old Huey's fallen down to the Championship. We'll get to him in a minute. Let's just quickly check in on Dewey, who's now played over 100 games for England, 55 goals, and is just having a lovely old time, having a lovely career. What a happy little chappy he is. 377 career appearances, 129 goals. He's just very, very, very good and still the perfect footballer. Did Louis catch him up? Because Louis still at AC Milan, so didn't make that move to Arsenal that he'd been linked with. And after initially not exactly tearing up Serie A, he is now ripping it apart. So a 7.42, a 7.49 in his last few years, scoring a lot of goals. He seems to actually be being used as a centre forward rather than out on the wing as his brother is. And to be fair, he's out on the left-hand side, it seems. He's got 38 England caps, only the 6 goals though. Are they playing together for England now? They are. They're on either wing. So you've got Louis and Dewey out on either wing with Phil Foden in between the two of them. So they are both now starters for England. Louis has made it to 178 current ability. So I think the official cusp for world class is 180. So he's very, very nearly there. I mean, he's probably beyond it. He's an elite attacking midfielder. Shows what I know about how the attributes and the current abilities and things work. But he's only 28. He could do another 10 years yet, comfortably. And then we've got Huey, the runt of the litter. Bless him. So he joined Manchester City on a free transfer, as we know, only came off the bench 6 times, didn't score a goal, wasn't very good, got loaned out the next year to Burnley, where, I mean, to be fair, still not very good, but enough for them to be convinced to spend £9 million on him. But he is not the same player he was at Hemel Hempstead. 5 goals in 45 appearances, not even able to make it as far as a 7 on his average rating. Has got over 500 career appearances now. Is he continuing to develop? You know what? He is. You're never too old, apparently. Have we got ourselves a late bloomer here in the shape of Huey? At 28, now at 149 current ability, has he got the chance to make it back to the Premier League? Maybe even get... I mean, imagine if he could get himself an England cap. It's a modern day Jamie Vardy. If he pulls it off. So 2 more years later, 15 years into the simulation, they're now all 30 years old, and Huey did make it to the Premier League. We'll get to him in a minute. First, let's check in on Dewey, who's still at Man City, still being brilliant. 128 England caps now and 67 goals. He is just the best football player of all time, probably, at this point. He is still a 200 current ability player, so no signs of decline despite hitting 30. Louis is still at AC Milan, now attracting interest from Saudi Arabian clubs, which is interesting. Did get to 56 England caps in the end. Has once again been brilliant for AC Milan. I mean, he's he's got to be moving up he's an AC Milan icon at this point, but maybe it's time for him to go and get the big money move to Saudi Arabia, because his brother's been earning 450 grand a week for years. He's still only on 135,000 pounds a week. Is he continuing to improve? 185. He is still getting better, I suspect. Now they're turning 30 and they are attacking players, we're probably not going to see them get any better. We might see them start to decline off from here. But I think the most interesting one is Huey. Huey has made it to the Premier League with Bournemouth, £69,000 a week. Nice. He stayed at Burnley for a couple of years, got to 10 goals for Burnley, and then got the £22 million move for Bournemouth. And actually, that's the best season of football he's had since leaving Hemel Hempstead in the Premier League as well. 14 Premier League goals. Still not enough to get him an England cap. I suspect it's probably too late for Huey at 30 years old to get that England debut. He's only up to 155 current ability. Yeah, he's not going to fulfill that potential, is he? Let's go a couple more years, because I think they're going to start declining at some point. This might teach me some things about when to give up on players with age. Right, we've gone 2 more years. Huey has made it to Chelsea. He has made it to the top level. He has gone the long way round. To be fair, he is on the transfer list at Chelsea as well. But he's made it to Chelsea. Louis still at AC Milan, 82 England caps now. I mean, he is a superstar. 2 more years, he must be a Milan legend. He is. Louis has become a legend at AC Milan. He is now 186, so that is still a slight improvement for Louis. He is still getting ever so slightly better. Dewey's had another pay rise, 149 England caps, still looking very, very good. Over 500 games now for City. Presumably he is a Manchester City legend. He's not. Where is he? Is he even an icon? Dewey is a Man City icon, but hasn't made it to legendary status. So actually, he's the only one of the 3 who's not become a legend at a club, because Louis became a legend at AC Milan. Huey, of course, became a legend at Hemel Hempstead. Dewey, to be fair, probably an England legend, isn't he? Is he still the perfect footballer? No, right. Dewey has started to decline. So Louis is still getting better. Dewey is starting to decline. I don't know what I can read into that. Huey, as we can see, did make it to Chelsea, had a couple of years at Bournemouth, made it to Chelsea. I also just saw at the corner of my eye, did make his England debut as well. Huey made it to the England squad, and I am delighted. He is, I mean, obviously he's hitting his decline though, because he's gone to Chelsea. He's actually done not great. I mean, he had that first great season at Bournemouth, which is when he it was his second year at Bournemouth. He made 2 England substitute appearances, went to Chelsea. It's not really worked out for him at Chelsea. He's only started 1 game for them, and looks like they're going to be selling him off back down to the Championship. So he has dropped back down again to 147. So Huey had made it to 155, hadn't he? So I think Huey is starting to decline quite rapidly now. I mean, he has played a lot of football, nearly 700 league appearances for Huey. He's probably quite tired. Dewey has made over 500 appearances. Louis, who's the only one still improving, getting on for 600 appearances. So who's going to have the most longevity, I guess, is the final question. 2 more years, they're now 34. And Louis finally made his move to make his money in Saudi Arabia. Huey clinging on to the Premier League. Dewey, of course, still at Manchester City, and still playing regularly for England. 174 caps now, 84 goals. It looks like, I mean, he did get there. It took him a long time to learn to do it, but he has now become, in his 30s, a natural central midfielder. He started to reduce his salary expectations at Manchester City, still playing every game, scoring lots of goals, not quite getting back to his absolute vintage at that point when he got 25 goals, but what a career he's had. He is now down to 179, so declining fairly rapidly now, Dewey, at 34 years old, down to 179. Louis has gone to Saudi Arabia and is earning 1.8 million pounds a week, over 100 England caps, over 50 England goals for him, still playing regularly for England. So he stayed at AC Milan for 1 more year after our last check-in, and then a 107 million pound move to Al Ittihad, where, I mean, he could play there for another 5 years and just make all of the money. Is he the best of the 3 now? He's 166, so he's actually declining fairly rapidly as well. All three of them falling off. This doesn't bode well for Huey, who's now at West Ham. So that's where he didn't get back down to the Championship, left Chelsea, went to West Ham, has managed to stay in the Premier League. He's been a Premier League player for 5 years or so, never added to his England caps, and has now dropped down to 128 current ability. So he's almost down to the level he was at 15. He was 125 at 15, as they all were, and he is almost back down to that level now. Wow. Okay, we've gone one more year, and Louis's gone. Has Louis retired? He could have made all that money forever in Saudi Arabia. He literally did his 2 years. He retired just after our last check-in. So Louis retiring at, what, 34 years old after, I mean, it's a pretty good career. I feel like there was money still on the table for Louis. He was still playing regularly for England, and I guess just went to Saudi Arabia, did his couple of years, made his money, and decided to pack it in. He's done. He's not even gone into coaching or anything. Huey is probably about to join him in retirement because he's not got a club. He did one more year at West Ham, only made one substitute appearance. He is now down to... he's got staff details, so Huey might actually become a staff member. But as a player, he's down to 116, so lower than he was at 15 years old, but might become a staff member. And then Dewey, still at Manchester City, he's actually got a pay rise again. He's gone back up to £475,000 a week, still playing regularly for them, and still a very good player, 174. I think what we've learned here, I mean, we could go on and on and on. We could watch Huey's managerial career. I'm not going to. I think we've made our point. I think what we've learned here, what I've learned here, maybe it's not as important that they play game time. I mean, Dewey ended up playing 600 career games, barely played at all in his first 3 or 4 years, though, while Huey was doing hundreds of games, ended up playing over 700 times in his career, and despite exactly the same ability, never made it anywhere near the level of Dewey. The facilities are all important, but what we learned with Louis is that you don't have to necessarily have him at 15, 16. He didn't get exposure to those facilities until he was 20 and still had an outstanding, legendary career. So if you can get him in young enough, just have good facilities. You don't even need to play him. You can sling him out on loan. It's fine. Just whatever you do, don't leave them playing in the National League for 10 years, because it doesn't matter how good they are, how much potential they've got. If they're 25 years old before they become professional footballers, they're never quite going to make it to the heights that they could make it to. And that, folks, brings us to the end of my little experiment. Let me know what you think. I don't usually do this kind of content, but, you know, I love the views. So fingers crossed you love it and watch it and stuff. If you did enjoy it, leave a thumbs up on the video for me to let the algorithm know you want to see more kind of stuff like this from me. It lets me know as well. And let me know down in the comments what other experiments you might like to see in the future. If you are new and you did enjoy it, subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on. I usually do Let's Plays. There's lots of that here on the channel. And thank you very much for watching. That was more fun than I thought it would be.